What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel. Overall, The Five Bloods, released on Netflix in 2020, is probably best for people who are Vietnam War enthusiasts or who are just generally history buffs. I would say those are the people who would probably like the movie best, but if you do like seeing things explode and persons, I guess, do the same, then you probably will still appreciate the film. However, it's a bit long. My name is Michael Inman, and I'm an active duty service member in the United States military. On this channel, I talk about my Air Force experiences, and also I do military movie reviews. So what is The Five Bloods about? It's five individuals who are veterans because they were active during the Vietnam War. They come back to Vietnam following their time in service and following some life experiences after getting out of the military. And the reason they're returning back to Vietnam is because during their time, they came across a large sum of gold. So this movie is both a commentary on the Vietnam War, it's a historical kind of bit of fiction because it's informing you a bit on some of the tensions that were concurrent with the Vietnam War, but also it is a treasure movie. Yes. So this film, directed by Spike Lee, follows these five veterans returning to Vietnam to retrace their steps and find where they hid this large sum of gold in the forests of Vietnam. Things go awry when they partner with, I think, a treasure hunter who I then thinks backstabs them. And then other things start happening in which they run into issues, and then internally amidst the five, some internal demons have to be faced and cause other things to go wrong. So think of it as the 4 or 5 veterans themselves. One of the people from their strong friendship had already passed away. And so a lot of the film is remembering their friend and how he was a leader for them and how he also gave intellectual leadership to the crew while they were deployed to Vietnam. And then one of the veterans brings his son. So there's some tension between father and son. How close were they while growing up? What are some things that are still unspoken? Eventually they do find the treasure. I think it gets stolen from them. All I remember are a lot of things blowing up. And so eventually the people, the multiple entities trying to steal the treasure from them that they just uncovered again. Eventually, I do believe some, not all of them, survive this trip, but some of them get to take this treasure back to America, and it does help them, raise their family out of any kind of financial distress, also raise some of their community members out of financial distress because they share some of that wealth with the local community. Film ends on a neutral note because multiple people from the beginning of the film have now passed away. And on the upside, some of the treasure did make it home successfully after multiple decades following when it was originally found in the forests of Vietnam. That's what the movie generally is about. Now let's discuss some of the takeaways. First, it's very historic at the start of the film. They're giving you real footage plus fake footage of Vietnam War, pushback against the Vietnam War. Then they're discussing things that were going on in the African American community during the Vietnam War, and then also tensions between community policing and the Black community at large, running concurrent to African Americans being sent to Vietnam to defend the country. All of that is being packaged at the beginning of the film. All of those tensions, all of those nuanced topics, all of that's jam-packed in the beginning of the film. So it kind of hits you like, oh, is this a history lesson? What are we doing here? But also it is informative, so it's good to know. Second, the older actors or the primary actors for the film also play their part during the flashbacks to when they were active duty service members. Because of course, these 4 or 5 individuals are coming back years, decades later, near the end of their kind of life trajectory, right? To reclaim this gold or refine and rediscover this gold. And so it's quite odd when they're doing like a 30, 40 year flashback and it's the same people. We look past it, but it is something unique. I do believe this was probably a residual from when this was shot during the 2020 era. So I think to minimize the amount of people in the cast and of course, other restrictions that were going on during 2020, I think that's why they said, you know what, cut the actors that were probably going to play them as younger people. Cut it. We'll just use the same people and keep it pushing. The third thing that was unique from the film is that it did showcase a little bit of what psyops are, or psychological operations might look like. But generally what I'm describing in the film is when, during the Vietnam War, according to this film at least, the Vietnamese people or military would broadcast over the radio waves messages that may contribute to a decrease in morale. And so some of these crafted and targeted messages were trying to speak directly to members of the African American community who were now serving in the military and of course deployed to Vietnam to fight in that war. But some of the messages were written in a way to highlight real discrepancies between how the community might be treated at home, but how you still have equal expectation to defend your country abroad. And so it was a clever highlight of what a psychology operation is meant to do in regards to just sow doubt if you can. It was unique seeing an example of that in this film, and I think that's what Spike Lee, the director, wanted to do. Next, when this film escalates, it really escalates. For the first portion of the film, let's say the first third, maybe even half, but let's say third, I'm gonna be nice. It's not very action oriented. There's not many explosions. There's not just things gruesomely ending up on the screen. But then when it starts, it really starts. Two quick examples of that would be, unfortunately, I think someone or a group of people are executed. That's quite shocking in the film. And the next is when an individual jumps on a grenade to, I think, save their peers. And that is also quite shocking because the way it's shown is quite visually jarring. So though the film makes you wait for it, this film is a bumpy ride once it gets started. Spike Lee said, oh, you want action, you want shock value. I'm going to give you shock value. And finally, I would say, unfortunately, though there are some strong messages in the film that are worth, pondering with for a while, it feels like a film major's senior thesis project, like strong messages, maybe the execution plan was a little underbaked, not quite rushed, but a good amount of it could have been maybe trimmed. It feels like it missed some editing that maybe should have occurred. And then also, why was it 2 hours and 35 minutes? I promise you that was unnecessary. So this feels like it should have been between 1 hour 45 and maybe 2:15 at the total max. I wouldn't say I regret watching it because there were some strong thoughts, strong messages, strong takeaways from the film that were nice to leave with. But I do feel as though it should have been executed a little in a more sharp manner. Thank you, of course, for joining me on this fun ride. If you enjoyed this video, definitely hit the subscribe button below. If you want to see a little bit more of this face, you can find me on Instagram at Michael Inman _. Click on one of the videos on the screen to watch more military movie reviews or check out some Air Force content. Until next time, see ya.